This program is sponsored by Medical Arts Hearing Instruments, 52 West Street in Leominster, locally and authentically providing better hearing and quality of life since 1978. www.donotshout.com.
This is a public hearing for the City Council, 21-20, National Grid of North Andover, Hamilton Street, to construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way or ways herein named. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in support of this petition? The second time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? For the final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? The last and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there any councilors that have any questions or comments? If not, Mr. President, I declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you.
Public hearing for the City Council, 22-20, National Grid and Verizon New England, White Pond Road, to install one jointly owned pole on White Pond Road, beginning at a point approximately 600 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Mechanic Street and White Pond Road. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in support? Again, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? For the third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? The third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any councilors that have any questions or comments? If not, Mr. President, I declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you.
23-20, National Grid of North Andover, Nashua Street, to install conduit from MH number 5229 Main Street to MH number 5230, MH number 5230 to be installed on Nashua Street, install conduit from MH number 5230 to riser P2 Nashua Street. Again, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this petition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? For the third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? For the third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any councilors that have any questions or comments? If not, Mr. President, I declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you.
Public hearing. That one's not mine. But it is Councilor Bedienza's.
C-38, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the annual tax classification hearing be scheduled for December 9th for the purpose of setting the annual factor used for fiscal year 2020. And we're going to ask our assessors to join us. Good evening, gentlemen. If you'd introduce yourselves for the public.
My name is William Mitchell. I'm the Chief Assessor for the City of Leominster.
Rick Dondero, Assistant Assessor. Rick Dondero, Assistant Assessor, City of Leominster.
William Connor, Assistant Assessor.
Mr.
That's it. Any
Mitchell,
questions?
Sure. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, Mr. Bedanza.
We've been down this road a few times before, of course.
We
But
have.
if you'd make a presentation or a brief presentation as to why you're here this evening and what the
Sure.
basis of tax classification is, and we'll go from there. How's that?
That sounds perfect. I know that we have a booklet that you all have. It's 45 pages long. There's a lot of numbers in there, a lot of material, and certainly what I'd like to try and do tonight is simplify it as best I could. Keep it very simple for the audience today who's viewing it. So as always, the people who are watching from home, or if you see this taped, you can certainly go on our website, see that booklet. You just go into the assessor's page. You'll see some links along the left-hand side. One is labeled classification booklets. If you click on that and go to FY20, you'll see what we're going over tonight. It's important, as always, to let people know that tonight you're deciding on classification or a disbursement of burden from one class to another. We don't set the tax rate tonight. The tax rate sets itself. We'll get into that a little bit. But simply, you have four choices. You have the single or split rate tonight. You have a small commercial exemption you can review, residential exemption, or an open space discount. Basically, the effective assessment date that you see on your bill that you get on January 1st, this upcoming January 1st, will reflect the valuation of your property as of January 1st, 2019. So it's important to note, that's why we're always behind the market 1 year from when you receive your tax bill. As always, you have that opportunity as a taxpayer to review that valuation. I tell people that's the most important bill that you receive. Review that valuation. You have a new tax rate. You have 30 days to appeal that valuation. It's important to note that you're appealing the valuation. We do not talk to taxes. We talk to value. So if you can't afford your taxes, you probably want to go see John Richard. If you want to talk about valuation, you want to talk to us about that. because that's something we can do. With that being said, at this point, just to get into a little bit of what the market did this year, Rick Dondero, our assistant assessor, always reviews every property that sells every single year. We do that to determine the valuation of properties in the upcoming year. So Rick, if you don't mind, maybe you can give a
Sure.
synopsis of what happened this year.
Yes. If you go to the back of your books, we attached a printout, and you can clearly see all the different classes of property. And it gives you a little idea of the increase from, it says fiscal on the top of the page, but it's actually calendar year 19 and calendar year 20 as far as the sales, the way we review them. Again, it's affecting the tax season of fiscal year 2019 and fiscal 2020. So the increase from fiscal 19 to 2020 is what we're showing you here by class. So this is based on all the sales that we review all year. We're going out every single day and inspecting properties, and we do pay attention to what's happening to each class of property. So if you look down the list here, you can see, for the most part, the city of Leominster has increased 7%. Single families, condominiums have increased 7%. Two families increased 12%. Three families, 8%. The larger apartment complexes, much like commercial industrial, they take longer to come back into the market as far as the increase. So we have seen an influx of sales, larger stuff, 4 to 8 family units, 9+, the larger apartment complexes. They've had a great increase this tax season. As you can see, 4 to 8 families, 16%. The larger complexes, 14%. And then commercial industrial have gone up 7%. We made a large move on those last evaluation. They have increased a little bit, not as great as the past. Last year, they took quite a jump. So overall, the city of Leominster, as you can see, the 2019 total taxable property value and the 2020 total taxable property value has increased 7.44%. That's everything. That's all the properties together. So
Rick, can I interrupt you
Sure,
for 1
yes.
second?
Yes.
Every year we go through this, but I think it's extremely important that people understand that 2.5% is not on their particular property. As they're seeing 7% on a single family.
Right.
They're going to be questioning.
Sure.
I thought you can only go 2.5%.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's important that people know that it's 2.5% of the total assessment of the city.
Well, it's of the levy,
Right.
2.5% of the levy.
Right.
No, I just think that's important. When we're talking 7%, they're going to be saying, where's that 2.5?
Right, the 2.5% that everybody refers to all the time. So you would take last year's income that the city received, the tax levy, we call it, you can only increase that by 2.5% in any given year. So that's what we refer to. If you take out your tax bill personally and you do the math and you're up 5%, that's not what we're talking about. That's not the 2.5% we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
We're talking about a value increase here, and this is what we're analyzing on a day-to-day basis.
just to make that clear, what you've got there is the residential across the board, and that's, of course, going to differ from property to property.
Correct.
Yes,
So that
absolutely.
2.5 of the levy limit is going to get distributed in accordance with individual values of properties.
That is correct.
And some people could actually see a decrease based on whatever their
Property
value is.
type, yes.
And
That's
other people
accurate.
could see an increase that's more than 2.5 because their particular property went up in value 7%, or maybe in some cases even
Greater.
more, right?
That's why it's important to look at this sheet. You can see that, and that's why we pointed out 4 to 8 unit apartments, the valuation for those went up 16%. So that's, you're going to see that that tax bill is probably going to increase more than a single-family tax bill.
But even within that
certainly.
class, there may be properties that went up 25%. And there may
Absolutely.
be properties that went up 4%.
Yeah, that leads to, there's fluctuations not only in the market, but with people's homes themselves. If you've done renovations to it, there's maybe we haven't seen the property in 9 years, and so we finally get out there to update the information that we had,
Yeah.
and that boosted your property valuation because we were underassessing you for the
Right,
last 3 or 4 years. So these fluctuations can happen, and that's why I always point out the January 1st tax bill, most important one you get. It has a new valuation on it every year, a new tax rate. If you think something's wrong, call us up. Come tell us. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And we're certainly open to educating the public with that. Because every person that we talk to, we feel as though it's a word of mouth, and people start to understand, they start to become accustomed to it, so.
All right, so,
We're trying to indicate with what I'm talking about here is.
Trends.
How, yes, the market. We study the market. This is what's happening to each property class.
as a savvy old client of mine once said, when you have a tax problem, something's going right,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So the bad
haven't
news
heard
is your
that.
tax bill's going up, but your property's worth a lot more.
That's right, that's right. With that being said, at this point, like Rick had pointed out, the total assessment for the whole city went from 3.886 billion to 4.175 billion. That's the total valuation of the city. And that's important, and I note that because it becomes simple math at this point. The budget this year increased from 72,055,827. That's what we're raising from property taxes, up to 75,076,958. That still leaves us $5.221 million in excess levy capacity that we did not raise. With that being said, you take that number, becomes simple math, 76,958. That's our budget this year. You divide it by that valuation we just gave you, $4,175 million, and that comes out to $17.98 per thousand. That's why I always point out that the tax rate is not the important number. That sets itself. It's basically your budget and the valuation of the city. That's what sets the tax rate. So people look at that a lot and they go, oh, great, the tax rate's going down. That's great, because that means the valuations are going up, budget's going up slightly, and sometimes we'll see
So
it offset.
the driver's the budget. One way or another, we have to
Absolutely.
raise the 75 million.
it's got to happen.
So
Gotta happen.
so if the values go up, the tax rate might slide down a little bit, but at the end of the day, $75 million has to be raised.
That's right. And then the only other thing that we talk about is growth. So growth is anything that happens throughout the city each year that wasn't taxed prior, and Bill does all of our building inspections, permit inspections, anything that is new to the city. So I'm going to let him talk to a minute, just a couple highlights of what happened in the city over the past year so you can understand how the valuation of the city also increased because of that.
Thank you. Good evening. So just some highlights that we had this year of growth. We had 9 new single-family homes and 11 that completed with previous amounts that we were already capturing. We had 6 new condo units, 2 new 2-family units, 1 new multifamily home, and we had 60 new units created in 2 complexes at Brooks Pond. We had new commercial buildings in Research Drive over by the DMV. Reliant Medical Center finished building this year, and we had new fast food Popeyes put in, and as well as industrial, we had process cooling come in over on Research Drive as well. And we had a 14 Lanides Lane finished up construction this year as well. The rest of the growth was found through permits and inspections, and even things like TIFs that have been adjusted, counted as growth.
And I think that's important to say, too, because, Bill mentioned process cooling. That's not any growth that we realized this year. Remember that we did do a TIF for process cooling. They're in their first year, which means that they are only being taxed on land this year, the improvement that they built. We gave it 0% for the first year. So As we lift that, we claim that growth. It becomes taxable. So really, it's a stay of taxes until that comes online. So we're not seeing, nobody's suffering because we're not taxing them. Really, what we're doing is we're still taxing them the way it was before they built, and so now we'll slowly put that online, as we did with Tucker Drive, for instance. We're starting to see that. They're one of our top 10 taxpayers now. So you can see, as though keeping people in business and in the city, that growth, allowing that tax increment financing plan to take place, it comes online and it benefits the whole city by seeing that large increase.
Bill, do you have a sheet someplace that lists, for an easy sort of view, the TIFs that we are currently in and where they stand in terms of the,
I don't have a list, but I can certainly make one. It's easy enough. I track them each year.
Yeah.
So that's easy enough to generate. I think we actually only have 3, right?
it'd be great information for us to have, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
So we, looking forward and forecasting where we stand with those.
Sure, absolutely. With all that being said, now I think, we basically are talking about, do you want to, at this point, split the tax rate, look at the commercial or residential exemptions and the open space discount? A lot of the information within the book, we know that the city's made up of 78% residential, 22% commercial. This is pretty steady. We'll see fluctuations. Some things to note, if you're considering on splitting the rate, there is, I think, page 28 and 29 show what happens to the tax rates if that happens. What's important to note, because of that 78% and 22%, in order to save any money for the residential class, for every dollar in the tax rate that you lower on the residential class, the commercial, industrial, and personal property goes up $3.60 per thousand. So it's just not enough. It doesn't, we can see even this year, Fitchburg actually moved their way back to a single rate. Good for them. It's been a long time they've been trying to move to it. I know the city of Worcester moved back by 5 points. Chelmsford, for the first time last year, split their rate by 27%. They've seen some adjustments. They were actually moving already back to a single rate by 5 points this year as well. So I think a lot of people realize, you split that rate, it's great, but does it really benefit the city? Does it really benefit the residential taxpayers? And I think we're seeing a trend that most people are coming back to a single rate.
So as we sort of revisit each year, the balancing act is, if you split the rate, you have to disproportionately increase the tax rate on the commercial and industrial properties, because they make up already such a relatively small portion
They do.
of the entire tax base. So by doing that, you discourage industrial and commercial growth, which in the long run may be deleterious to the residential taxpayers, not advantageous.
That's right. I think what we all want to see is we want to see stability. And if we start looking at splitting the rate, it starts discouraging people like Process Cooling staying in the city of Leominster, or people like AIS may be considering moving out or not coming and occupying a 12.5 million square foot building. So there's a lot to it by going to a single rate. It encourages that investment within our city, and it encourages stability for all taxpayers. So that's important. What does it mean at this point? We saw that the budget goes up to $75 million this year, raised from taxes. What does that mean to you? The average residential tax bill will go up about $165 to about $5,086. The industrial goes up about $568, and the commercial properties actually see a decrease by $120. The reason for that is last year they saw a average of a $1,268 increase. Now they've stabilized. At this point, the valuations have stabilized, and because our tax rate lowered and the valuation is stabilized in that piece of the pie, the average commercial property will see a $120 savings.
So just for purposes of this evening, our obligation tonight is to vote the classification, right?
Correct.
And do we have to vote on the exemptions, or we just
You don't.
wanna
You're
adopt
going to
them?
just abstain and not.
Not adopt them?
Right.
Okay. Does any members of the council, well, first I'll go to finance. Any members of the finance committee have any questions for the assessors? Councilor Cormier?
Thank you very much. Just a couple of things. I know that we talked about all the numbers and increases of all the property types. One of the things I noticed is that even though we added some commercial property, last year it was saying, in FY '19, it was saying there was 555 parcel counts of commercial. This year it's down 5. So where did we reduce 5 when we added all that?
Sure, so it's
And the same thing with industrial, that went down from 347 to 342.
that's correct. So what happens a lot of times is, what we've been doing is, we'll have multiple parcels where a building stretches over, like 3 parcels, for instance. It's one building. There's no way they can be sold separately, but for some reason, we're taxing the first parcel with the building on it, and then 2 other parcels. So you'll see that one property reduced from 3 down to 1. So what we're doing basically is cleaning up what we call plottage or mapping mistakes in the city. And I think that's what you're seeing a result of. We've made a concerted effort over this past year. We've sent out letters to those properties, says, look at, I know your deed says it's 3 parcels, but you'll never separate these. Your building spans over all 3, using parking for this. So we're going to go ahead and combine those parcels for assessment purposes only. It doesn't have any legal ramifications. We send out a letter explaining that. If we don't hear back from you within 90 days, then we will certainly combine those parcels for assessment purposes. It just makes sense. It's valuation-wise, that's what we're about, fair market value. Nobody's going to take and look at the building and walk by and see a real estate sign, well, the building's this piece of land is this piece. They're going to sell it all as one piece of property, and that's how we want to value it. So that's what you're seeing this particular year.
Another concern I have of mine is obviously the mall at Whitney Field is one of our largest taxpayers in the city, and there's going to be a big anchor store becoming vacant. There's been a public announcement, and that certainly is going to affect value. So, next year when we're sitting down here, if that's not occupied, you're looking at a shift in burden from, you can't tell me that's not going to affect the value of the mall to have that vacant. So how does that going to affect? And then we're going to have new growth on up on Tanzio Road. There's a big facility being built there, and I think another proposal before the planning board now. So that might offset some of it, but how do those things affect where we're going in the future?
Yeah, we certainly try and keep ahead of the curve on those ones, those big commercial properties like that. I talked a lot with Mr. Lascotti last year with even Orchard Hill Park and some of the transition that these malls are going through. There is some rejuvenation that looks like it's going to happen. It's all a transitional period. They talk about transforming these sites into distribution centers or more housing / retail. Or revitalizing the type of retail in there. The anchor store now is not the prime moneymaker anymore. Now you're starting to see the split in some of these other retail strips going up where there's multiple retail availability or restaurants in it. And we've had, I'd say at least 5 calls to our office about the mall, asking us specifically about the valuation of that. So we know that there was interested buyers. We know that it did just sell. We have it assessed right now at about $38 million, I think, and it's one of the top 10s.
Right.
If they do appeal that, we'll certainly be talking to them about that. But there's no way around that burden being shifted to another class. The best thing what we've done is adopt that single rate that at least promotes people like Tanzio Road building these facilities, AIS staying strong, and these other ones picking up some of that burden. So I think the shift will happen a lot within the class and not be such a burden on the residential class.
Good.
And when you do take a $12 or $38 million parcel like that, you shift it over 78% of the community, it still doesn't, it's still not a large impact, let's say, on the residential people. So.
Good. I think that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else in finance? Any members of the council generally have any questions for the assessors? Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Unless anybody has any objection, I will declare the public hearing closed. Well, wait a minute.
You gotta go to the public.
Not so fast.
Okay,
My apologies.
just in case. See the
Does-
Boy Scouts in the crowd, they may,
Yeah.
a
I
few
think
tough ones.
Maybe they have some questions. Does any member of the public have would like to approach whether in favor or against communication 38 relative to tax classification? I'll offer again, any member of the public wish to be heard regarding annual tax classification, C-38? And a third and final time, would any member of the public like to be heard with respect to C-38 annual tax classification? Seeing none, I can now declare the public hearing closed. Thank you.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
That's a first.
That's a first, Mr. Chairman. We've never, I can't never recall someone not speaking in a public forum.
Where is he tonight?
You did a good job, that's why.
For a long time, we had Eddie Gagney, remember? He always came down. In the Chamber of Commerce.
Public hearing before the Leominster City Council, petition 59-18. James Whitney and 10 registered voters. Amend the zoning ordinance to add drive-through to the allowable uses under MU1 zoning. This is a particular petition that was actually approved some time ago. Yeah, sure. Mr. Whitney, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Jim Whitney, Southgate Business Park. We came in for the MU1 zoning on it. And that's pretty much all I know about. Something happened with the process. There was a process problem. And I'm hoping the clerk can steer us in the right direction.
Well, I think there was a glitch when the new clerk came on
Yeah.
from the clerk that retired.
Something got left off of a,
Right, so it wasn't done within 90 days, so
Yeah.
it requires us to have a new public hearing. So it was approved prior. I don't know if you want to just give us a brief summary of, your intentions in doing this, or,
well, it was originally for, so we could add a drive-in, because under the MU1, we couldn't have a drive-through on a restaurant. So we wanted an avenue to be able to add a drive-through, and it wasn't by right. I think we did it by special permit through the planning board, if I remember correctly. That was pretty much it.
anybody from Legal Affairs have any questions?
No,
Mr.
it-
Bedanza?
yeah, Mr. Chair, we approved it, really not in applicant's fault. It just fell through the cracks. And
Right.
we're gonna start the process anew, unfortunately.
And I don't have any problems with it.
Okay. Any other counselors have any questions before I bring this to the, bring it to the public?
I do.
Counsel Cormier?
Yeah, I know Mr. Whitney mentioned that he thought it was by special permit. I don't see that here. I see just, it says to add allowable uses under MU1 zoning, period. So I think it would be, just to be clear, I think it'd be by right, because I don't see anything about that it would be a special permit.
Special permit of the planning board, wasn't it?
It would be a special,
Planning board.
special permit? Okay. Okay,
I think it's by right in the others, the other commercial zoning.
okay.
But this one, it was going to be added as a special
A
permit.
special permit.
That's right.
Okay.
So what is the process going forward from this point on? What would-
I think
what would be?
after we have our public hearing, the planning board has to have a public hearing. Then we get a recommendation from the planning board, and then once we have their recommendation, we can vote on it.
Okay, so we're going right back to square one then?
Well,
Okay.
yes, except, there's really probably not a need for referrals or
Yeah.
regular course or,
Okay.
any of that. So, any other counselors have a question?
Just one
Counselor
question.
Oettinger?
Since this has been delayed so long, is the original use still a viable option for your business down there? In other words, the restaurant that you was thinking about locating there, did you have a,
No, we didn't have a
Okay.
particular restaurant. We were
So
we had
okay.
inquiries about possibly putting one there, and it's going to come when the more volume, the more buildings that go up in the park, at some point, out front is going to, they're going to want to come in at that point, but the traffic counts aren't enough now. So we were looking into the future for this.
okay, good. Good,
And
thank you.
actually, we're starting to hear from different businesses about going in, so it probably will be in the next year or two.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Does any member of the audience wish to address the council either in favor of or against petition 5918? Second time, does anyone in the audience wish to address the council either in favor of or against petition 59-18? Third and final time, does any member of the audience wish to address the council either in favor of or against petition 59-18? Last call for counselors. Anybody? Seeing none, Mr. President, I declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Busy at work, Dave?
What's that?
You've been busy at work?
Very, very. 22 hours of overtime last week.
22.
Hours of overtime. Plus, what, 5 or 6
Yep.
bad commutes? Awful.
Okay. We'll get my gavel. I'll shove it for you. You know where it is? The public forum is now open. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on any matter specifically listed on the council agenda this evening. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. The first gentleman that has signed up is John Sousa, Planning Director.
Joan Souza, 347 Prospect Street, for the Rotary tonight.
Welcome this evening.
Okay. Primarily, I just wanted to speak on behalf of the C40 and the mayor's plan for flowers downtown. As you know, or you may know, the Leominster Rotary has had as a major fundraiser for approximately 40 years, flower boxes down there. And we wish to continue that program. It's one of our major fundraisers, and a lot of the money, in fact, probably a third of the money that we do raise for that is earmarked back towards the mayor's fuel program, or the fuel assistance program. So we just wanted to make sure or help that we're part of this new design, that if we have the opportunity to work in our flower program with what the mayor is proposing. And we realize that what we have is getting a little bit old and tired, but we also know it's a time to make a change. So we're willing to do that, but we also would request that we be part of that program as it goes forward, as we make the city better and prettier, as you might say. It's been our goal for a long time, and we just want to be part of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the Rotarians. A great dedication to downtown. It's appreciated. The
Okay.
mayor's here, so I'm sure he heard everything you asked for.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
That's the last person that has signed up for the public forum. Would anyone else in the audience like to address the council?
Hello, Steve Susi from National Grid. Because of traffic, I apologize, I was late and I wasn't able to.
Not a problem.
Address. I'll try to be quick here. Just for the petitions, for White Pond Road, poll 4-50, we are installing or petitioning to install that pole just to cut down on some long spans. This is part of a project for a solar generation farm in Lancaster, so the entire White Pond Road, they're going to have all their poles upgraded and replaced to higher poles. Just because the span between 4 and 5 was too long, they needed to just install pole 4-50.
Stephen, that's 22-20 that you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And also on 23-20 and 21-20, they're both for the same project for us. This is a part of a Mass DOT project. They're widening Route 13 in that area. And what we're doing is we're taking the overhead wires that are going over the railroad bridge, and we're making them on the ground. So the handhole what it specifies, 5229, that would be on private property. National Grid has like an abandoned substation parcel there. We'll put the manhole there, and then the underground conduits will go underneath the bridge to the poles. There is another petition to install pole dash 44 on that. That's like for some reason, maybe because there was a bridge, and then there are also the DOTs doing, the whole road up basically up at the exit to 290, that was split into two different work requests. So we have some poll petitions coming next week, it seems, or in the future. But the underground wires will be going from underneath the railroad bridge to some new poles on National Street Pole 2-50, or Pole 2, the new Pole 2. Those will be relocated in a new Pole 44.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. Would any other member of the audience like to address the council? Second time?
Thank you, Mr. President. I got here a few minutes late myself. I was unable to sign up on the sheet. My name is Peter Campobasso, 3 Park Street, Leominster. I'm here to speak relative to Communication 37, accepting Chapter 4453F. Essentially, the petition requests that the City Council accept the provisions of this particular chapter to establish an enterprise fund for the monies received from the cable TV contracts. What's driving this is a few years back, this particular Mass General Law was amended to specifically include cable television public access money. In renegotiating the new contracts, the cable companies, specifically Comcast, needs to add this to the provision in order for them to pay the money to the city. So it's pretty straightforward. Hopefully we can, if you have any questions, we will be here, but I would request the council to accept the provisions of this chapter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Would any other member of the audience like to address the council?
Wendy Weeks, 142 Blossom Street in Leominster. I'm also the city's grant administrator. I'm here to ask your support for C42, which is a $4,000 appropriation to the highway expense account. Maya is, as you know, the city's insurance agency, and we can apply for a grant every year from them. So we got $8,500 to support the purchase of equipment, safety equipment from for the forestry department and also for trench safety. So the $4,000 would be to complete the package that we asked for. That was the amount we were eligible for. And then the DPW and I worked on a package that would complete the trench safety and the forestry department. So that's the $4,000 as a match to that. I'm also asking your support on C40. That is the park grant for downtown Leominster. As you know, the park grant is a reimbursement grant, so we have to appropriate the entire amount, and we'll get $400,000 reimbursement from that. The park grant, as proposed, is to complete a section, to completely rehab the section in front of the woodblock building, which will go from the Moosnock Brook project, which was $1 million investment from the state, to the intersection of Main and West. So it'll include everything from pavers to benches to new trees and lighting. It'll really, make that a destination over there. There's going to be a water feature. Right now, we've just gotten the money. We're in the planning stages. We'll meet with the architect. The architect was actually paid to do an entire downtown study, a landscape architect, with money that was left over from the Moosnock Brook project. So the state allowed us to do a whole study of the downtown. Also tied into all that is the money from the Complete Streets, which was, we did improvements to all the intersections to make them handicap accessible. So we've done all those downtown now. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Nice job, Wendy. Would anyone else like to address the council? Second time, third and final call. If not, the public forum is closed. We're going to go right to the chairwoman of Ways and Means for interviews. Madam Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have two appointments to the Office of Emergency Management, Melissa Ramos and Raymond Butler. Are they here this evening? Raymond, okay, would you come up here?
They're both here.
No, you can come right in.
They're both here.
You're going to come right.
I think Melissa Ramos is here.
Oh, is she here? I didn't see. Oh, come on in. Yes, I want to interview. Yes, I didn't think you were here. Come right in. We're going to interview you both at the same time since you're both for the Office of Emergency Management. Thank you. Sorry, I missed you. Okay, so we did receive a letter from the mayor asking that you be appointed because he had received a communication from the director of the Office of Emergency Management that found both of you to be very worthy. Ms. Ramos, we understand that you're currently an LPN studying to earn your RN degree in nursing.
That's correct.
And Mr. Butler, you have many skills that would be an asset to our organization as a former Boy Scout leader, and we have many Boy Scouts here tonight, so that's a good example to them. So what we do is we'd like you to appear before the council and the public so that people can get to know who our volunteers are, especially something like as important a service as the Office of Emergency Management. So what we'd like you to do is just give us a little short biography, why you would be interested in joining the OEM, and what you could contribute. So why don't we start ladies first, Ms. Ramos.
Okay. So my name is Melissa Ramos.
You're going to want to turn.
Oh, excuse me. Is that better?
Just tap it.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go. So my name is Melissa Ramos. I currently work at Clinton Hospital, and I'm currently going for my RN. And I think that with the experience that I have, I can definitely bring it into emergency management and help others, give out to the community as well. Also, my husband volunteers as well, and he kind of motivated me to also
good
join.
motivation.
And yeah, and it's definitely, I mean, I was there Saturday for the winter stroll, and I definitely had an amazing time. We were making s'mores and handing them out, and just seeing everyone's faces.
Yep.
And it was something else. It was, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot, and I think with my skills and my qualifications, I definitely will make a good member.
Okay. Well, studying for RN is a lot of work.
It is.
And so for you to be willing to give, part of your time to the city is a wonderful thing, and we really appreciate it. And,
Thank you.
You mentioned that we're making Samoas at the winter stroll. I mean, that's really, being a nurse and being able to help out perhaps in an emergency is one thing, but also being part of the community in that way certainly, kind of sets you aside as somebody special. So that's great. So thank you very much for being, being able to do that for us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Butler, can you give us a little information?
Yeah, my name is Ray Butler, and I live at 132 West Street in Leominster. I'm new in town. I've been here just a little under 2 years. Lived in Hudson for 25 years before moving to Leominster. And I've been very involved with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Explorer Posts, and various other organizations. Also with the Radio Emergency Associated Citizens Teams and the Civil Air Patrol.
Oh.
So, I was very involved in different things in Hudson, and I want to be involved here.
Yeah. How do you like Leominster?
I like it. I like it
Yeah.
very much.
Very good. It's a little bit bigger than Hudson, but kind of similar
is.
small town feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. So your background as a Boy Scout leader certainly would, help you identify with some of the people that you'd be working with in emergency situations. And again, like I said to Ms. Ramos, in situations where you're just going to be working with the community in general, so they get to know you and, appreciate what you're doing for us. So we have been so lucky with the people that step up to volunteer for the Office for Emergency Management. It's amazing. Every time somebody comes down here, they have another story, another way that we think that, that they could help the community and the operation. So thank you very much, both of you. Does anybody, well, first go to Ways and Means. Any of the Ways and Means Committee members have any questions or comments?
No, thank you for wanting to serve, and it's great to have so many qualified people that want to volunteer their time. Thank you.
Councilor Dombrowski?
I don't have any questions, just welcome and thank you very much.
Any other councilors? President Marshall?
Thank you for your service. Emergency management, sad day, what a ball was down there. Yeah, you guys were doing hot chocolate and coffee and s'mores, and please don't tell the mayor that I had 3 of them. One was for my granddaughter.
That was you.
That was you. All right, he's not voting for you now.
And one of the ponies ate one of them. So the pony enjoyed it as well.
He kept coming up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a lot of energy, a lot of excitement. It's great to have the 2 of you on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to be taking a council vote tonight. I'm going to ask the president to move you up on the agenda after we're done with a little bit of business. So you can wait for the results if you'd like. And thanks again for your
Thank you.
volunteerism.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Good. Okay, we're going to start. Okay. The regular scheduled meeting for this evening is now in session. Please stand and join me to salute to the flag. Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, come on in first, please. You guys can stand right in front of the table down there. Okay? Go right down there, sister. Go ahead, you can down there. Another one come here, go, Phil. Wait till you're on there, go ahead. Here you go.
There you go. Last but not least.
Guys all set, whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
Start.
Pledge allegiance. Thank you very much. Good job, guys.
Go that way. That'd be easier. Thanks, guys. Thanks for work.
We'll begin in the evening with a roll call vote of the honorable members of the council, beginning with Councilor David Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Oettinger.
Present.
Councilor Bonanza.
Present.
Councilor Feckley.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
Madam Clerk, all 9 members are present this evening. Thank you. Is the chairwoman of records ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. I have the minutes of the regular city council meeting of November 26, 2019. I find them to be in order, and I ask that they be placed on file.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the minutes? So moved. We'll now move on to communications from the mayor. We have orders beginning with communication 42.
C-42, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, relative to the appropriation of $4,000 be made to the highway expense account, same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund, regarding OSHA compliance grant match.
Communication 42 is referred to the chairman of finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regular course on communication 42. We'll now move on to communication 43.
C-43, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, relative to the appropriation of $3,300 be made to the building department expense account, same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund.
Communication 43, again, is referred to the chairman of finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regular course on communication 43. We now go to petitions, first time on the agenda, beginning with 24-20.
24-20, National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Hamilton Street, beginning at a point approximately 126 feet southwest of the center line of the intersection of Main Street and Hamilton Street. Install P44 Hamilton Street.
24-20 is referred to the chairwoman of public service.
Yes, Mr. President, regular course, and we need to establish a hearing for January 13th, 2020 at 6:35.
Thank you for the recommendation. We have regular course on 24-20. All those in favor of establishing the hearing date, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the hearing's been established for January 13th at 6:35 p.m. in the council chambers. Thank you. We now move on to matters before the city council. I'll yield the floor to the chairman of finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. We began the fiscal year on July 1st with a balance in the stabilization account of $19,890,850. We added some interest during the course of the fiscal year, totaling $85,909, taken from the account since the beginning of the fiscal year for various appropriations, both past and pending, total $3,527,461, leaving a balance in the stabilization account of $16,449,299.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any questions on the financial report? Council Frida.
Through the chair to the finance chair, do we have any knowledge of free cash?
We don't. I have no information as to its status at this point.
Can we try to get some? I'm not comfortable with taking everything that we spend out of stabilization. I'd really like to see some free cash, or at least have an idea where it's coming.
I will inquire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to the financials of the City of Leominster, I'm going to deviate and go to appointments. I yield the floor to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means for your appointments. The first one is Melissa Ramos.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We had Ms. Ramos here this evening for an interview. Ms. Ramos is working on her RN degree, and even with all of that work that she has to do and the time commitment that she has to make for that, she wants to volunteer for the Office of Emergency Management EMS unit. Her husband as well is a volunteer. She has participated already and has enjoyed it very much, and I think that she will be an excellent addition to the Office of Emergency Management. So I would like to make the motion that she be confirmed, and I will ask you to hold my committee.
I yield the floor to Council Frida.
Absolutely. I think we're lucky to have her, and I support that.
Thank you. Third member, Councilor Dombrowski.
I agree.
Thank you. Madam Chair, please requalify.
We have a unanimous recommendation to confirm Melissa Ramos to the Office of Emergency Management EMS unit volunteer.
Council, sir, the recommendation ready for confirmation on Melissa Ramos to Emergency Management. Are there any questions or comments on the floor? If not, this will be a roll call vote for confirmation, beginning with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Oettinger.
Yay.
Councilor Bonanza.
Yay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
I shall record as yay by a vote of 9-0. Melissa Ramos is now a member of Emergency Management. Thank you very much, and she is in charge of the s'mores department.
Yes. That's important.
Great job, thank you. I'll yield the floor now to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means for Raymond Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had Mr. Butler here for an interview for an appointment to the Office of Emergency Management, Emergency Operations Unit volunteer. Mr. Butler is a recent relocation to the city of Leominster. He's enjoying our city very much. He is a former Boy Scout leader. He seems to have many qualifications that would add to his commitment and contributions to Emergency Management Operations Unit. So I would move that we confirm his appointment as well, and I would ask you to hold my committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield the floor to the clerk, Councilor Frida.
I agree.
Third member, Councilor Dombrowski.
I agree.
Thank you. Please requalify.
Thank you. We have a unanimous recommendation to confirm Raymond Butler to the Office of Emergency Management, Emergency Operations Unit volunteer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council, sir, the recommendation read for confirmation on Mr. Butler. Are there any questions or comments on the floor? If not, this will be a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Oettinger.
Yay.
Councilor Bonanza.
Yay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
I shall record as yay by a vote of 9-0. Confirmation has taken place. Again, thank you very much. What's that? Okay. The assistant clerk is going to swear the both of you in a moment, okay? All right, good, thank you.
Very good.
We're now going to move on to the financial matters before the city, beginning with Communication 37. Is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C-37, DJ Mazzarella, Mayor, request that the Leominster City Council accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F in 1/2, to establish an enterprise fund for all franchise fees, license fees, and cable-related monies negotiated in cable television agreements between the City of Leominster and cable operators. This statute provides for an enterprise fund where these monies from cable television agreements would be deposited each fiscal year. The mayor, in conjunction with the cable television director and his staff, would prepare a proposed budget, which in fact would come to us for approval. The executive director of LTV spoke in favor of this at our last meeting. It would seem to me that this is a appropriate statute to accept the provisions of, in that it would provide for a nice, neat sort of operation in terms of our cable television agreement with the various providers as those come up. I would ask, Mr. President, that you check with my committee, but I would be in favor of accepting the provisions of the aforementioned statute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor to the clerk, Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Thank you. Third member, Councilor David Cormier.
I also agree.
Thank you. Please requalify, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. President, the recommendation unanimously of Finance is to accept or to grant C-37, accepting the state statute.
Thank you. Council heard the recommendation read to grant Communication 37. Are there any questions or comments on the floor? Council Frida.
Just a comment. Normally, I'm not supportive of enterprise funds because it ties up money that if anything else happened, we can't touch it. But in this case, I absolutely support it. It's a whole different part of city finance. And I think that cable companies and the financing and the federal government are trying to take a lot away from communities as far as cable goes. So I think anything that we can do to ensure our public be able to see what we do and continue the transparency, I support it. So I'm 100% behind it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions on the floor? If not, this is going to require a majority vote in order to have confirmation and for granting. This will be a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Oettinger.
Yay.
Councilor Bonanza.
Yay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Dobrowski.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
I shall record yay by a vote of 9-0. Communication 37 has been granted. Congratulations to LTV, and thank you for all your work. We now move on to Communication 38. Is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, C-38, DJ Mazzarella Mayor, request that the annual tax classification hearing be scheduled for December 9th, 2019, for the purpose of setting the annual factor used for fiscal year 2020. We heard from the assessors earlier this evening in a public hearing relative to this matter, as we do each year. They stated the case for maintaining a factor of 1 tax classification. I would propose that we adopt, as we have for several years in the past, the factor of 1, and I ask you to check with my committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor to the clerk, Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Thank you. Third member, Councilor David Cormier.
I also agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please requalify.
The unanimous recommendation of Finance is to establish a factor of 1 for our annual tax classification.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council's heard that recommendation read on Communication 38. I yield the floor to the council for any questions or comments. Councilor Frida.
I just want to reiterate what the chair mentioned earlier, that all we're doing is setting the tax rate, because setting the classification, because everybody's going to think we're setting the tax rate because it's mentioned the same time in the newspaper. The tax rate is set by the budget that we put together and what we support or not support, but it's the budget of the city, and that's where the tax rate comes from. This is only a classification to keep everything the same. But every year, we're going to go through this with phone calls, especially when the anticipation is $168 on the average single-family home to go up. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. So I just think it's important to stress that it's just a classification that we're voting for.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions? If not, this will be a roll call vote. Again, we're looking for a 2/3 vote, beginning with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Odenger.
Yay.
Counselor Bonanza.
Yay.
Counselor Feckley.
Yay.
Counselor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Counselor Dobrowski.
Yay.
Counselor Frida.
Yay.
I shall record as yay by a vote of 9-0. C-38 has been granted. Thank you, folks. And just to remind you, we have to sign a document afterwards. Okay, so that'll either pass it around now. I'll be the last one to sign after the meeting. That's fine. Thank you. We'll now move on to Communication 40. Is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C40, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, relative to the appropriation of $669,000 to be made to the Park Capital Outlay Expense Account, same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. This is relative to the creation of a park in front of the Woodblock Building downtown. We heard from Wendy Weeks in terms of a breakdown in terms of the costs associated with the creation of this park. It's leveraging a grant application from the state in the amount of $400,000, leaving about $269,000 of the total being the responsibility of the city. This is going to revitalize and rehab that existing park. It's been a long time since that has been touched, and I think this is a worthwhile project to continue the vitalization of downtown. And it would be my position, Mr. President, to support C-40. I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor to the clerk, Counselor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Thank you. The member, Counselor David Cormier.
I also agree.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, please requalify.
The unanimous recommendation of Finance is to grant C-40.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, sir, the recommendation from committee to grant Communication 40. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? Councilor
Yes,
Frida.
Mr. President, I request, I'm going to recuse myself. I serve on the board of directors for the Rotary Club, and just going to err on the side of caution, just in case.
Okay. All right. Counselor?
I also am an officer with the Leominster Rotary Club and feel that I have to recuse myself also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other members of the council need to recuse? So Counselor Frida, Counselor Odenger will not be participating in this vote or a conversation. Communication 40 needs 6 votes on the council out of 7 in order to pass. I'll begin with Counselor are there any other questions or comments on the floor? If not, I'll yield the floor to Counselor David Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Bonanza.
Yay.
Counselor Feckley.
Yay.
Counselor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Counselor Dombrowski.
Yay.
I, Chairman records yea by a vote of 7-0. The communication has been adopted, has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President. Would that the sum of $669,000 be appropriated to the Park Capital Outlay Expense Account, same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'll yield the floor to the council. Are there any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Those opposed? By a vote of 7-0, the order's been adopted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll now move on to Communication 41. Are you ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C-41, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, relative to the appropriation of $200,000 to the Police Department overtime account, same amount to be transferred from the Stabilization Fund. We have a letter supporting this from the police chief, who indicates that they are rapidly running out of the appropriated monies that are in the overtime account. As we've heard from the police chief in the past, they are underfunded. He writes to the mayor, the police overtime account serves as a fall short before the end, serves to fall short before the end of December. I am requesting the transfer of $200,000 from stabilization to police overtime. We began the year with $401,000 for regular overtime. As of today's date, that being November 18th, I show $69,423 remaining, 17.8% left of the original appropriation. The department has been averaging approximately $15,000 weekly this fiscal year. Consistent with previous years, as we know, they're undermanned and rely on overtime in order to fill some of their shifts. And it would be my position, Mr. President, to grant C-41 I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor to the clerk, Counsel Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Thank you. Third member, Counsel David Cormier.
I agree also.
Thank you. Please requalify, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. President, the unanimous recommendation of Finance is to grant C41.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, sir, the recommendation read to grant Communication 41. Are there any questions or comments on the floor? If not, this will require a two-thirds vote, beginning with Council David Cormier.
Yay.
Council Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Odenger.
Yay.
Council Bonanza.
Yay.
Council Feckley.
Yay.
Council Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Council Dombrowski.
Yay.
Council Frida.
Yay.
I, Shepherd Corrigan, by a vote of 9-0, the communication's been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President. Order that the sum of $200,000 be appropriated to the Police Department overtime account, same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, sir, that recommendation read. Are there any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order's been adopted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee, as well. We now move on to legal affairs. Councilor Dombrowski, you have quite a few things tonight. We'll begin with 59-18. Are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Petition 5918, James Whitney and 10 registered voters, amend the zoning ordinance to add drive-through to the allowable uses under MU1 zoning. We had a public hearing tonight. We are awaiting the planning board recommendation. So unfortunately, we can't act on this tonight. We have to give this further time. So my recommendation would be further time.
Okay, thank you. Council, sir, the recommendation for further time on petition 59-18. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, further time has been awarded to 59-18. Thank you. We now move on to 15-20. Are you ready to report?
I am. Petition 15-20, Jill A. Natola, petition for acceptance of Sawtell Road, Montrose Street, and a portion of Richard Road. We did get a referral back from the DPW giving us their okay for this petition. I believe we're still waiting for the planning board referral. Any idea when they're meeting on this?
January 6th,
January 6th, and our next meeting is?
13th.
Okay. All right, so we just need to, perhaps give them a reminder that we need a referral on this, but we're going to have to request for further time on 1520 as well.
Okay, then can we also make sure that they receive the DPW recommendation for their hearing?
We can do that.
Okay, all right, good. So, Mr. Chairman, you're looking for further time?
Yes.
Thank you. Council, sir, the recommendation read for further time on petition 15-20. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you very much. I'm certainly happy to see a petition like this. I think do we vote to accept a portion of Sawtell already? But that hasn't been legally done yet, correct, through the chair to the city clerk?
Please, go ahead.
The previous small part of Sawtell has been recorded, but it's only a teeny piece, so this will extend that.
Oh, okay, so it has been, okay. All right, so that's good, and so this will be an extension, but, there's one thing that I want to ask, Montrose Street. I want to see if we can ask the police department if they think, and I've mentioned this to the petitioner before, they called me with some questions. I want to see if the police department thinks that section of Montrose Street should be renamed, because you have a situation where, even though on paper there's a cut-through to Montrose Street, which is off of Grant, Montrose Street there's two separate Montrose streets in Leominster, technically. One of them you have to go all the way around and access by Grant Street, and the other one is, in this development, they have, besides a paper street that's between both of them, they have nothing to do with each other, and I've been told that section of paper street is never going to be developed, so they're forever going to be separated. And I don't know if it's a good idea that we have two separate streets that are named the same. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a property that's going to have an address on this section of Montrose Street or not, but even if somebody calls the fire department, police department, because there's an incident at the corner of Montrose and Richard and Montrose and Sawtell, I think it'd be better off to have it a different name so there's no confusion. So
No, I think
just-
that's a good point. We
I just wanna-
should definitely bring that up.
Right, I think that's something we should ask the police department about.
I
bef-
definitely will.
Before they record deeds and do all kinds of things.
Right.
And then we have issues, and they gotta fix it all,
Yeah.
you know?
No. Good point, Counselor.
We had that problem with Gordon Street and Carolyn. Carolyn was supposed to go all the way down and connect to Gordon, and it was discontinued. So the extension on Gordon went from being Carolyn to Gordon.
Right.
So there were some expenses incurred by not only the developer, but the homeowners afterwards. Good point. So again, we're looking at further time on this, Council Dobrowski?
Yes, we do need the planning board
Right, okay.
recommendation.
Are there any other comments or questions on the floor on petition 15-20?
Can we officially refer that to the police and fire department at this point? Okay, just wanna make that official.
All right, good. Okay, police and fire, thank you. Mr. Chairman, you concur with that?
I do. I'll do that under new business.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of further time on 15-20, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, further time has been awarded to 15-20. Thank you. We now move on to 16-20. Are you ready to report, Mr. Chairman?
I am. Petition 16-20, Jill A. Natola, petition for acceptance of easement for Research Drive extension. On this one, we are still awaiting a referral from the DPW as well as the planning board. So we could just put reminders to them. But unfortunately, we can't really do anything until we have those referrals in place. So I would ask for further time on 16-20.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council has heard the recommendation for further time on petition 16-20. Are there any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, further time has been awarded to 16-20. Thank you. We now move on to 17-20. Are you ready to report?
I'm ready to report. I don't know if there's an objection to taking 17 through 20 to 20 through 20, 20-20 in block. They're all sort of in the same boat, but I'll leave
I
that
yield
up
the
to
floor to
you.
the council. Is there any objection in committee? Any objection on the floor? If not, Mr. Chairman, you're going to make a recommendation on 17, 18, 19, and 20-20. The floor is yours.
Okay. 17-20, David R. Cormier requests a stop sign on South Street against southbound drivers at Tisdale Street. Petition 18-20, David R. Cormier requests to install a stop sign on South Street against northbound drivers at Crown Street. Petition 19-20, David R. Cormier requests to amend Chapter 13, Section 13-77, stop signs, and add the following: Comstock Road against southbound drivers at Union Street, Comstock Road against eastbound drivers at Duggan Drive, Duggan Drive against southeastbound drivers at Union Street, Duggan Drive against westbound drivers at Glenwood Drive. And petition 20-20, Patrick Bresnahan, Leominster Police Officer, requests no parking signs on North Main Street East and Priest Street. Also, no parking between signs on poles number 24 and 25, located in front of 227 Priest Street. Mr. President, petitions 17 through 20-20 are all scheduled for a public hearing on January 13th, 2020. We can't take any action until after the public hearing, so my recommendation would be further time on each of these petitions.
Thank you. Council, sir, the recommendation read for 17 through 20-20 for further time. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, further time has been awarded. You can tell Council Dobrowski is looking forward to Monday Night Football tonight. We'll now move on to, good move, Councilor. We'll now move on to 21-20. Are you ready to report? I'm sorry, Public Service. You have the floor.
Thank you. 21-20, National Grid of North Andover, Hamilton Street, construct a line of underground electric conduits, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures under and across the public way of ways herein named. We had a public hearing tonight. There were no questions, no concerns, and we closed the hearing. We did hear from the representative from National Grid, who explained what the reason was behind the 21-20. So I'll go to my committee, but my recommendation would be to grant.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll yield the floor to Counselor Oettinger.
I agree.
Thank you. Counselor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor back to the chairwoman for confirmation.
Unanimous recommendation to support 21-20.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council, sir, the recommendation read to grant 21-20. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 21-20 has been granted. Thank you. We now move on to 22-20. Are you ready to report?
22-20, National Grid and Verizon New England. White Pond Road to install one jointly owned pole on White Pond Road, beginning at a point approximately 600 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Mechanic Street and White Pond Road. Again, we had a hearing tonight. There were no objections, no comments. We closed the hearing. My recommendation would be to grant.
Thank you. Before I yield the floor to the council, Councilor David Cormier, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. As usual, I have to abstain because this piece of equipment is partially owned by my employer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Duly noted. 22-20. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation to grant, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, 22-20 has been granted. Thank you. We now move on to 23-20. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
23-20, National Grid of North Andover, Nashua Street, to install conduit from MH 5229 Main Street to MH 5230. MH 5230 to be installed on Nashua Street. Install conduit from MH 5230 to rise at P2 Nashua Street. Again, we had a public hearing tonight. There were no indications of any objection. And the representative from National Grid was here. So the recommendation from me would be to grant.
Thank you. I yield the floor to Councilor Oettinger.
I agree.
Thank you. Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Thank you. Please requalify.
Mr. President, the recommendation is unanimous to grant 23-20.
Thank you. Council, sir, the recommendation read to grant petition 23-20. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 23-20 has been granted. Thank you, Madam Chair. We now move back to Ways and Means. We have communication 36 from the mayor. Madam Chair, are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Communication 36, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Samantha Como be exempt from the provisions of MGL Chapter 268A, 20B, Conflict of Interest. We have a letter from the mayor requesting that she be exempt. She's currently employed by the City of Leominster as a teacher and will be taking a position with the Recreation Department as a volleyball instructor. And suppose we should be very grateful that she's willing to take that on. So my recommendation would be that we approve the exemption, and I'll ask you to poll my committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield the floor to the clerk, Councilor Frida.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Third member, Councilor Dombrowski.
I agree.
Thank you. Please requalify, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. President, we have a unanimous recommendation to exempt Samantha Como from the provisions of MGL Chapter 268A, 20B, Conflict of Interest.
Council, sir, the recommendation read to grant communication 36. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, all those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, communication 36 has been granted. Thank you. We now move on to a resolution, communication 39. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President.
Okay, excuse me 1 second.
I'm again going to recuse myself from
Okay,
this.
Councilor Frida and Councilor Oettinger will recuse themselves from this. Thank you. Madam
So-
Chair, you ready to report?
Yes, so am I reading the resolution, or is the clerk reading it? Lately, the clerk has been
Want to
reading
read
it.
it? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A resolution to file and accept grants with and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the Parkland Acquisitions and Renovations for Communities Grant Program for the creation of a park at Monument Square, downtown Leominster. Whereas the downtown area of Leominster is densely populated and is part of the HUD core area in an environmental justice neighborhood, this park will create a destination near downtown businesses and connect a significant amount of handicap accessible area within the downtown. And whereas Monument Park will greatly enhance the downtown by creating organized open space immediately adjacent to downtown businesses and expanding the city's open space acreage. And whereas the main focus of the park is to promote economic opportunity in the downtown area and connect Monument Park with the city's proposed rail trail and recently completed Manusnock Brook Walkway project. Whereas said property is designated as recreational land under Chapter 45, Section 3, by deed and subsequent vote of the City Council and is under the jurisdiction of the Leominster Recreation Department. And whereas the Executive Office of Energy Environmental Affairs, EOEEA, is offering reimbursable grants to cities and towns to support the preservation and restoration of urban parks through the parkland acquisitions and renovations for communities. And whereas creation of the new Monument Park will cost a total of $669,006.18, and the city has allocated $669,006.18 through its stabilization account for the purposes of the creation of Monument Park. Now, therefore, be it, 1, that the mayor be and is hereby authorized to file and accept grants from the Executive Office of Energy Environmental Affairs, and 2, that the mayor be and is hereby authorized to take such other actions as necessary to carry out the terms, purposes, and conditions of this grant to be administered by the Leominster Recreation Department, and 3, that this resolution shall take effect upon passage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council's heard the resolution read. Madam Chair, I'll yield the floor back to you.
Yes, thank you. So this correlates to Communication 40, which we passed tonight. We had Ms. Weeks down here this evening. This would give the city the opportunity to file and accept grants towards this park, and I believe she said it was $400,000, Chairman of Finance. So my recommendation would be that we adopt the resolution,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
and I would ask you to go to my committee.
Thank you. I yield the floor to the clerk, Councilor Frida.
I'm recused.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
No problem.
Third member, Councilor Dobrowski.
No, I agree.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, please requalify.
Yes, we have a unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to adopt C-39, a resolution to file and accept grants.
Thank you. Council's heard that recommendation read to adopt Communication 39's resolution. Are there any comments or questions on the floor? If not, this will be a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor David Cormier.
Yay.
Thank you. Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Bonanza.
Yay.
Councilor Feckley.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Dobrowski.
Yay.
I, Chairman Recorder Jay, by a vote of 7-0. The resolution's been adopted. Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to now move on to page 6. We have some new business. Can we hold off on that for 1 second? All right, I'm going to yield the floor to Councilor Ottinger. Give us a little update on those kids that came in early this evening, the scouts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Several weeks ago, I was invited by the Weeblos Den for PAC 16 to come and speak to them about city government. It's part of one of their requirements to make a badge. And during the course of the conversation, they had a lot of interesting questions. They were very in tune. In fact, as one of them wrote a letter to his teacher afterwards, indicating that he wanted to have more civics curriculum in the Leominster school system. And I have a excerpt from this letter that I thought would be important to read, so I'd just like to share that with everybody. And he says, I also learned that children can change things in the city by making their thoughts and opinions heard. So from fifth grader, that's kind of impressive that they want to take part in the city. They wanted to come down here tonight, visit with us, see it. Unfortunately, it went past their bedtime, so they had to leave. But they were very impressed with what they said earlier. They really thought they would enjoy it.
Well, thank you for bringing them down.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. You can have the floor. I'm going to go over this later.
Gail?
Presentation to President Richard Marchand, City Council President, City of Leominster, 2019. Thank you for 20 years of dedicated and compassionate service to the City of Leominster, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the City Council, sir, and all of the constituents of Ward 5, and all the people of Leominster that you've helped over the many, many years that you have been of service to the city.
Thank you.
that we're going to miss you,
Oh,
and
God.
we appreciate everything that you have done for
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
And there you go, clap and gavel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It means a lot. God.
President Basham, your words.
God. Oh, God. What a honor it's been serving with you. It really has. And you become very nostalgic at the end. And I'm sure the person taking my seat, the new counselor, Peter Angelini, is going to do a great job. Looking forward to watching him and working with him as we kind of transition out of the neighborhood and into the neighborhood on different issues we have. I can't say enough of kudos to each and every one of you. Your dedication to the city is amazing. And it's not easy, that's for sure. You know, you're challenged every day with different tasks, coming down here, dealing with legislation, but also helping constituents on a daily basis. So I just applaud you so much for it. As Frank was alluding to, the young kids that came in here tonight, they kind of worked their way into the chambers during the finance hearing, so I'm not going to apologize for that. It was quite different. It's probably the first time it's ever been done, but so, Mark, thank you for having the patience to allow us
No
to
worries.
have a few giggles in here. The kids should have heard the comments being made when the numbers were being thrown out on. One of them said, "Is that real money?" And is that my dad's house? You know, So it was kind of cute to have him in here, but it was important. But you recognize Frank's effort to bring him down here, and there's three influencing people that kind of made a difference in my life in this town. Besides all my mentors going back to 1989, one of them was Karen DeCicero, and I never knew her personally, but through the efforts of her family and Bob Savatelli and his family, we all know of Karen's closet, born of Down syndrome with a physical hand disability with her heart. That finally took her life at a very young age, and her parents stepped up. They went. I know. I read a little bit about them today. They went to a store to pick up a few winter jackets to donate to Johnny Appleseed, and when the cashier and the manager found out what they were doing, they walked out with thousands of dollars worth of jackets, and it hasn't stopped. Years have gone by, and they do tens and thousands of dollars every year to make sure kids are clothed. And I know, Sue, you firsthand, you feel that, with Jenny's. There's Kylie's Care Kits for Kids, and we've all heard the story about Kylie, but she was only 10 years old, 10 years old, sitting in a cafeteria without her friends one day, and saw off to the side a little girl putting her food in her backpack to take home. And, from that, she had a passion to start a program called Kylie's Care Kits, and it went from sending home 10 little care packages per week to over 500 a week today. That is absolutely amazing. And then there was one young lady that, when I went down to the Spanish Center and I asked Nettie, who orchestrated this new building, the Higgins Kitchen, and who orchestrated the building? And State Rep was behind it, and everybody was behind it. But there was this young lady who was a volunteer in the summer program. Her name happens to be Caitlin Bavenzi. And she was a volunteer working in the summer and was a little bit taken back because when it came to the kids having some shelter where they could sit down and cool off and enjoy it or use on a rainy day, there was really nothing for them. In the house itself, the Spanish Center, a lot of work had been done there. But as you know, with the issues they've had over the past, it really wasn't compatible to deal with all the kids that were down there. And so, Caitlin met with her dad, started talking to some of his subcontractors. And the next thing you know, she's down in college in New York City orchestrating this incredible capital improvement, as we know as the shelter, is the American Spanish Center. It's absolutely amazing. So when we think of those kids, when we think of Karen DeCicero and her legacy, and people like Kylie McCumber, the McCumber family we know so well. And then you take a look at Caitlin Bavenzi, who could be just living the life and not worrying about anything, really reaching out and making a significant difference in the world in which they live and giving back. It's such a great thing for us to see. It just feels really good. I think my most heartfelt experience being involved with the city. I wasn't actually on the council. The year was 2000. And I was doing some work with the Downtown Association, just started working with the Johnny Appleseed Festival. And on November 20th, 2020, Gladys Charpentier passed away. And Louis, Mr. Christmas, was devastated. And the next thing you know, it was Thanksgiving, and it was time to bring our kids down the street to see all the beautiful things that Louis put out on his lawn decade after decade, and there wasn't a piece on the lawn. And so I visited with Louis, and he just told me, he was crying. He said his heart was broken. He just couldn't do it. I made one call to Danny Bouchard. Danny Bouchard put out an all-alert memo to the off-duty firefighters. And that Saturday morning, in a freezing cold, windy, chilly day, there were 18 to 20 firefighters that showed up. And it was almost like a bucket brigade where they were lined up. And of course, the smallest firefighter had a chance to get up into Louis' attic because no one else could fit. And they started passing the pieces down, and Louis all of a sudden started smiling. He was happy, and he was out there telling them where to put the little things and don't touch that over there and how to plug this one in. And it was just absolutely amazing. And I'll never forget, spending time with them down there as they drank a couple cases of beer, wolfed down 6 pizzas, and they were there for Louis. So Mr. Christmas, he needed a little uplift, and those guys over the fire department across the street gave it to him. So to all of you, thank you. I'll be around on that side of the fence. If you need me, I'm here. And I just can't thank you enough for all the support you've given me, but most importantly, what you do for this community is absolutely amazing. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Councilor Cormier.
If I may.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'd like to interrupt. It came down special.
Go to the microphone. Go ahead.
Just to say thank you.
Oh, God.
Just to say thank you.
All of them, all of us.
Yes, but we're losing you. So thank you so much for your dedication, your integrity, for everything you've done for the city, and I so appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You as well. You as well. Thank you. David.
Thank you. I'm now going to give you what my friend and former Ward 4 Councilor Bob Savatelli used to call a living eulogy. So I hope
if I wasn't the council president, I wouldn't be here tonight because I know exactly how Bob felt.
So I hope you'll bear with me. But I
It's
think
not deserving.
I think tonight, we all, we're at the end of a legislative session, if you will, and we all reflect on our time here. And for me, I can't believe it's been 10 years. And after your departure, there'll only be 2 people on this council that were here before me. So I feel like I'm getting old. But I think, even though I'm the youngest one here, but I think about all the years that I served alongside of you, and I guess I was very lucky to have at the time not 1 teacher but 2 on this council, literally you and Bob Savatelli. I think it was always a natural passion of yours to always be a mentor to people that you were around, and certainly that was no exception with me. You're going to be missed, although I know you're not going very far. I'll see you all the time, I'm sure. And I went out on a limb with Councilor Savatelli and said I thought he'd be back here one day, and I guess I was wrong. So I don't know if I'm going to say that again this time. But I certainly want to wish you the best in whatever you choose to do, and I know you'll keep very involved in the community. And and to thank you for helping me to be able to be what I consider to be a very good city councilor. And you always told me the truth. When I was right, you gave me a pat on the back, and when I was wrong, you told me. So I learned a lot from you, and I'm going to miss you.
Thank you, David. Okay, can we move on to old business here? All right. Councilor Frida.
Yeah, let me just add my 2 cents. I am the you didn't want to say oldest, longest serving one sitting here.
It's a good political way to put it.
Yeah. But I just want to say we go back 25 years. You were on when I first started. Then you get off, and things are not the same then as they are now. It was a whole different council, a whole different atmosphere. There were a lot of arguing, a lot of support. We were all over the place back then. You were gone for a few years and came back, and you've been great to work with. So I just wanted to, I don't think you're going anywhere, quite honestly. I think we're going to see you probably more now than we do. So, we'll see you next chapter, where that takes you.
Thank you. Feelings mutual. Thank you. Okay.
I think,
Councilor Dabrowski.
well, I think I'm second, right?
Yeah.
Longest serving, yeah, and Rick and I got on together, and Rick, you've been a great friend.
You too, brother. Thank you.
But I would be remiss if I did not bring up the fact that on the last day of the last meeting, people found out the way to streamline the process was with some tasty s'mores. I wonder how many people are watching this, kicking themselves.
That is now in the records in perpetuity.
But you've been a good friend, from late night phone calls to, helping my Little League team learn how to throw strikes. So you'll be missed.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Mark?
Rick, we've known each other for more than 50 years.
I think so.
That's a scary thought. But from our days on Blossom Street and Willow Street, and you've been a great friend all those years. I remember back to the days when I was city solicitor and you were a counselor, dealing with those administrations and Jack, and the great time we had back in those days as well. You've been a great colleague and a great friend, and I know you'll continue to be a great friend, as you always have. And thank you for all you do for the city.
Thank you.
Not just here, but with the JA Festival and the Sports Booster Club and all the different things you do. You're a busy guy, and the city should be very grateful to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, can we move on? Good. Okay, let's go to old business. We're all good with old business? Councilor Dabrowski, you have the floor first.
Yeah, we could just vote to send a formal recommendation to the police department and the fire department following Councilor Cormier's point relative to Montrose Street, and whether or not that particular section should be renamed to avoid future confusion.
Okay, so that's petition 15-20. There any questions on that? All those in favor of the recommendation, please indicate in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0. Thank you. Anything else, Counselor?
No, that's it.
Counselor Frida?
It's probably under community calendar, but I just wanted to say congratulations to St. Bernard's High School
Unbelievable.
in their championship,
Yeah.
2 in a row. There were a lot of kids from Leominster that are on that team that go to the school.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're quite proud.
Can we orchestrate a citation? Would you bring it to them?
Sure,
Okay,
absolutely. I
It'll be
would.
one of our last things to do. So I'm sure there's many Leominster athletes on that team. Anything else?
Yeah, just a extremely successful breakfast for the bands. We've served almost 900 people. Final numbers aren't in yet, but on a rainy, gloomy day, it was
Great effort.
really well attended. I want to thank Todd Robbins for filling in. Ben Parker was away on vacation, so Todd Robbins jumped right in and did a great job.
That's great.
So that was good.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilor Feckley?
No, just to add to the St. Bernard's story, they're the smallest high school in the state, and they won
That's amazing.
their division. So,
Yep.
yeah, I wish more people would, enroll their kids. I know, I'm not
Yeah.
city of Leominster, but anyway, the smallest high school in the state, it's amazing. It's amazing. Good for them.
It's good for them, absolutely. Anything else under old business? Councilor Bonanza?
I have a community calendar thing, so I can
Okay.
wait if you.
Any other items under old business? Okay, we'll go right on to community calendar. You can have the floor, Councilor.
Yes, this Saturday at the Drake House from 1 to 4. That's located at 21 Franklin Street, Leominster, just off, right between Union and Pleasant. We'll be opening the home to miniature tours of the parlor where the famous Minkins rescue happened. The mayor will be there, as he was last year, to roast chestnuts. The Office of Emergency Management will be there, distributing free hot chocolate and coffee, and we'll be selling wreaths to benefit the Mayor's Energy Fund. So if you've got some spare time on Saturday, come down and say hello and see at least the parlor of the Drake House and the renovations, and hear a little bit about some of Leominster's important history.
Great,
Except for
thank
that
you.
rain or shine. It's supposed to rain Saturday.
Rain or shine.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. Bring an umbrella in case you have to wait outside a little bit, right?
Last year, there were over 300 people, and it was frigid.
Yeah.
And people waited in line for up to 45 minutes to get into it.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay, great. Anything else on the community calendar? Just want to reflect back on the winter stroll. Recognize Melissa, Michelle, Diana, Kelly, the mayor's staff, what a great job they did. It's a tough process, closing all those streets down and putting together sponsors and the whole thing. It was just a great day. Emergency Management did a super job. You know, they had the treats, the s'mores, but they also had hot chocolate and coffee, and they had a full team there, which was really awesome. So to all the sponsors, thank you very much on behalf of the city, and it's amazing, you know, how much it was enjoyed. Any other items? Councilor Frida?
I almost forgot, but the Rotary Club on January 11th will be doing a Build-A-Bear program upstairs in City Hall. We have a contest going with all third graders throughout the city to do some artwork and show why the club is important to the city. Service above self motto. Gave them a couple of ideas about the breakfast, we give dictionaries to all the third grades. So I think it's going to be fun. Build-A-Bear has a great program. They make their own bears, and they do a little hat ceremony before they sew the bear up. So we'll be choosing 100 pieces of artwork, and there'll be 100 kids building a bear. So,
That's
and the top prize will get a $100 gift card.
Nice, nice. Okay, we're good? Folks, the meeting's over. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, enjoy your family.
Thank you.
This program is sponsored by Medical Arts Hearing Instruments, 52 West Street in Leominster, locally and authentically providing better hearing and quality of life since 1978. www.donot shout.com